Oke, selamat sore SCORA Angels dan SCORA Rangers. Selamat datang di National Peer Education Training di National Leadership Summit 2022. Perkenalkan, saya Nashwa selaku Vice Nora for External Affairs. Jadi hari ini saya akan menjadi MC dalam jalannya National Peer Education Training ini. Nah, sebelum jalannya acara, ada baiknya kita berdoa terlebih dahulu ya. Berdoa dimulai. Oke, berdoa selesai. Jadi sepertinya Barbara sudah bergabung bersama kita. So, hi Barbara, are you there?
Hello, yes, I'm here. Yes.
Okay. So, how are you?
I'm doing well, and you?
Yeah, I'm really good too. It's such a relief to hear that. So, guys, Barbara is the IFMSA SCORA Director 2021 until 2022. And as you know, today she will be presenting to us about porn addiction in young adults. So, yeah, I think the time is yours. Good luck, Barbara.
Okay, thank you so much. Hello, you can still hear me, yes?
Yes, it's very clear.
Yes. Okay, so I just want to share my screen. Let me see. I hope you can see what I'm seeing. I just don't know what I'm seeing. Like you're all seeing the screen. Perfect. Oops, sorry, my bad. So welcome everybody to this session. As Ali introduced, my name is Barbara. I'm the SCORA Director for IFMSA for this term 2021-2022, and I'm very glad to have been invited into this session. So I just hope that you'll be able to learn something from me, and maybe I'll also be able to learn from you. So if you have any questions, don't be afraid to ask, be it in the chat or be it directly. I hope that it will be a learning experience for all of us. So that being said, I'm just going to begin with the session by introducing the topic. We'll be talking about porn addiction in teenagers and what exactly our role is. So the main objective of this session is to understand what porn addiction is and why it affects teenagers, what we can do to, curb these issues. It's prevalent everywhere. And we need to learn to know how to deal with this challenge because it presents not just challenges as a teenager, it goes on and there are long-term consequences, especially in someone's sexual life and in general, the health and even their mentality. So it's a very important issue that we need to deal with. So with that being said, hello everybody and welcome to this session. We're going to start with definition of terms. Basically, pornography was derived from the Greek word porni, which means prostitute, and graphian, which means to write. And it was originally defined as any work or of art. So, I mean, everybody knows in general, pornography is very sexual and the main aim is to just bring out erotic emotions in someone. And you can see that printed on, like it can be presented in printed material, in visual materials, in images, in videos, and it can take very many forms because of course there are magazines that you can take. There are videos which are very prevalent all over the internet. There are movies and series and comedy. So in general, it's very prevalent and they contain explicit descriptions or they display sexual organs or activities that are in general intended to stimulate the sexual excitement. So we have types of pornography. There are three main ones, according to the much that I know. We have softcore pornography, hardcore pornography, and of course, illegal pornography. So before we go on, softcore and hardcore, basically, I would like to use maybe like series or movies that we use. Softcore porn may be making out, and they show things like people having sex, but they don't actually show everything. Like there's a degree of censoring in softcore pornography. That's the easiest way I could explain it. Then we have hardcore pornography. Many might define what I'll say, but I guess Game of Thrones was the best example I could bring out here, because they just display everything. You see every single thing that happens. So that can be classified as hardcore pornography. But what differentiates softcore and hardcore from illegal is that you will find softcore and hardcore are somehow legally protected by some various clauses in the law. However, now illegal pornography is a different genre where the pornographic media is seen to be legal and unlawful. So like as a result, the ownership, sales, and distributions of such materials are considered to be criminal acts, and you can be punished. So before I continue, can someone tell me what they think illegal pornography is? In their view, what do you think could possibly be illegal pornography? Can anyone tell me? Or did I just suddenly Naila?
Yeah, Naila.
Okay, hello Barbs. I think what is considered as the illegal pornography is child pornography and probably revenge porn.
Yes, actually, that's very true. Thank you so much, Naila. So yeah, that takes us to the next slide. So illegal pornography in general. I'm so sorry. Am I cutting off? Because I'm seeing like there's an issue with my network. Is my voice cutting off, or I'm okay?
It is earlier, but now it's very clear.
Okay. Okay. All right. So wait, recording. Okay, never mind. So like illegal pornography. Okay, it's okay. So illegal pornography is basically that which depicts minors, children, or those below 18 years. Of course, pornography that depicts bestiality, which is sexual acts involving animals, and of course pornography that portrays a lot of violence and injury to anyone to the point that it could land them in ICU or something. That is also considered illegal. Of course, things like revenge porn, it depends on the country and the restrictions that are in your country, because yes, it is illegal, but sometimes it's not punishable by the law depending on where you come from. But in general, illegal pornography, whenever you hear it, just remember child pornography and bestiality majorly. So yes, so thank you, Naila, for your answer. So just a little bit of statistics to see like how exposed teenagers are to pornography in general. So there's a study done in the West, like in the US, basically the Americas. And in this study, they found that 93% of males report that they have been exposed to pornography before 18 years. 62% of women, they report online exposure to pornography before 18 years. The average age of exposure is 14 for males and 15 for females, all below 18, meaning they usually exposed at first when they're children. 42% of females report that all exposure is involuntary, which gives the aspect of there's no consent sometimes. And approximately 11,000 adult films, quote unquote, are released annually in the entertainment industry. And you'll find that the porn industry makes 2.4 billion US dollars every year over the internet. But now when we include the print media and all the other platforms, they make up to 57 to 100 billion dollars per year. Sex is the most researched term on the internet in the West, and 87% of university students say that they have had sex over webcams on phones. So these statistics basically confirm that pornography is prevalent among the youth, and they're exposed at a very young age, and we need to understand a little bit more why they're at an increased risk. So you'll find like the difference between maybe when an adult is exposed to pornography for the first time and when it's a teenager or 13-year-old or 15, you'll find that the production of the neurotransmitter dopamine, which is responsible for controlling the pleasure and reward centers of the brain, and the process of forming neural connections are at a very high level. So that combination means that teenagers themselves are more prone and vulnerable to addiction. In general, they're prone to all types of addiction. So at this stage in life, the hormone levels are changing and they're a bit, erratic. So they can be very high while puberty is ongoing, and teenagers are naturally very curious about sex. So I think you can already see why they are so prone. And you find that there's an increased risk of exposure to sex and sexualization within the media, which means that this curiosity is happening at a much younger age than in previous generations. Like when you look at our parents' generations going backwards, especially because of the whole, what is it called? I don't know why that word is not coming, but the way we've increased technologically wise, like technology wise, we've grown, and you'll find that a lot of teenagers are very knowledgeable in tech savvy, like they tend to know more than their parents on how to maneuver with technology. And also with many parents and teachers being pornography through the internet, and they'll use this as their primary source of education. This also brings up the importance of CSC and why we need to discuss this, because if we ignore it, teenagers will just find a way to discover, to discover all these. So yes, in general, that being said, you'll find if it's left unchecked, youth porn can lead to addiction, which is a very pervasive phenomenon, because in terms of the chemical processes, pornography has been found to be powerful in the creation of biochemical rush among teenagers. The epinephrine is secreted into the bloodstream. And once it gets there, it's transported to the brain and successfully locks in the image. So once the image has been completely mapped and read by the brain, it takes a simple recollection of the image to trigger an arousal. So for this reason, you'll find teenagers can vividly, that means very clearly, recall pornographic images that they were exposed to up to even 10 years ago while they were still young children. And when teenagers experience this thrill, this biochemical thrill, they will look for every opportunity available to experience it again. And at this point, us as practitioners, we need to consider pornography to be more than merely just a social issue. And we should categorize it as a drug because of its addictive nature. And remember, these teenagers are still growing. Their hormones are still very unstable. So that's why they are prone to every type of addiction. And, it's like whenever you go through the, what do we call it? You go to the high level of that addiction. You just want to get high again and high again and high again. And it's very easy, like for teenagers to just be addicted. It's that easy. And that's why you'll find a lot of drug addiction is very prevalent among them. So, sorry, I think I went back. So basically, when an adolescent experiences a sexually driven dopamine rush, they will focus on the urge to repeat whatever triggered the rush. They'll experience a dopamine rush at the mere thought of getting to see porn or experience a sexual fantasy again. They'll care more about getting another rush than the consequences of interacting with the porn. And they'll develop a consumer mentality. Because other people will become objects for consumption rather than individuals' worth. So especially that fourth statement is something you should take note of, because you'll find a lot of people who are addicted to porn they are more at risk in becoming perpetrators of gender-based violence. So they will more objectify people, such that even when they look at someone, their perception of people in terms of sex is objectified. So they'll not look at you as human. They're more prone to desensitize themselves to the point that they just see you as an object. And that's what leads, especially when they need to feel that rush and high, they will be more prone to attacking and being perpetrators of gender-based violence. I hope I'm making sense and no one is getting lost. And also the teenagers like become unable to see the big picture, and the immediate desire for pornography takes the place of investing in a loving relationship. So you basically find that they tend to detach themselves even from partners in the future. They cannot have a proper connection with their partners, and they're unable to sustain a good relationship. So, sorry. Yes. So now we're going to go to, in general, the impact of pornography on teenagers. So you'll find that when a teen is exposed, there'll be intimidation and imitation, not intimidation, imitation and modeling of inappropriate behaviors, because they will start depicting a more perverted side or a more perverted personalities, even when it comes to interacting with people within their social spectrum. And you'll find there's also an unhealthy interference with the normal sexual development process, because they will be more inclined to even desire to have the kind of sexual experiences they see in pornography. So they will have they'll have difficulties with, having the normal sexual experiences with their partners, and they'll be wanting more to experience what they see in the porn. Also, the emotional anxiety and confusion can always settle in. It depends on someone. There are those who actually feel guilty and they feel ashamed all through. Like at first, of course, it's not something people discuss about, and it's not something that teenagers can admit. So they'll always feel guilty about it. But because they're addicted, they need to feel that high again. They'll go back. So there'll be that whole cycle of going back, feeling high. Then when they come back to normal, there'll be the feelings of guilt, shame, and they can have nightmares. So, but this is very reliant on someone's personality. There's also premature stimulation of sexual activity, which could later lead to sexual dysfunction later on in life. There's development of potentially harmful and misleading attitudes towards sex. Remember my comment about gender-based violence. You also it's associated with risks like poor social bonds, as I had said earlier, and aggressive sexual partners, which can lead to domestic violence, for example, and even death of the partner. So I hope I am making sense and no one is lost. So at this point, I'd like to ask if there's anyone who has any questions. Before now we go to what we can do to address the pornographic addictions among teenagers. Does anyone have any questions so far? Or should I proceed to the end?
Maybe you can proceed until the end first.
Okay, all right. Thank you. So how do we address the addictions? So for starters, we can start by reducing shame. So shame is one of the major factors that teens struggle with in general when they're addicted to pornography. Some may be hesitant to answer questions while they avoid eye contact altogether. And in addressing such cases, you should try to minimize the shame by being non-judgmental and supportive about their struggles. The whole concept of creating a safe space within SCORA. Why we try to inculcate that culture within SCORA is because when you're talking to a teenager about pornography, probably they will start by denying it because they feel ashamed and guilty. And at the same time, they know it's wrong. But you do realize you can't just go with a judgmental attitude and expect them to open up. So it's good to be, you should open up to them. And you should provide a safe space and don't be judgmental, and also don't push them too much, just so that you can try and reduce their shame. So maybe it all starts with a simple conversation with them. You might not be an expert, maybe, or you might not be a therapist, but by just creating that environment and being non-judgmental and understanding and listening to them, it could be the beginning of them solving the pornography addiction. So the next one would be to normalize the problem. So a lot of teenagers with compulsive porn problems, they tend to suffer in isolation. So many of them will believe that they are alone and their perverts in their actions. So to handle this, you have to reassure them that their problem is one of the prevalent issues, but communicate clearly the dangers it has on them. So, okay, many people might misinterpret the normalizing the problem. What I would say here is that when you're normalizing the problem, it's like to help them understand that this pornographic addiction is an addiction. It's like a drug addiction. It literally does the same thing that happens when someone who's addicted to the narcotic drugs, for example, goes through. So by telling them that, you're trying to tell them that it's a problem that happens to many and that you're not alone. There are many people that struggle with it. So remember, when you try to normalize it and you put it into a class of addiction, which is, okay, some might not like the psychiatric issue side, but when you tell them that it's something that many struggle with, they feel not so alone and they feel like maybe there's a solution and there's a way I can work towards ending this pornography addiction. Yes. So of course, even when you're addressing porn addictions, one of the key things is to make sure you respect the cultural norms. We all come from different cultural backgrounds. So you'll find that culture can strongly influence the manner and the degree to which a teenager is willing to discuss his or her sexuality. And it's crucial for you to be sensitive to these differences and recognize that sexual patterns and gender expectations can be some of the strongest cultural norms within a given group, and they cannot be treated lightly or exclusively. With everyone, it's helpful to gain an understanding of their sexual parameters and to respect their preferences. So whenever you're addressing pornography, and to help them define their boundaries. If the goal would be, for example, for you to tell them to draw three sexual behaviors, the middle circle line or off limits behavior, which is in the center circle, and helping the teenagers define where they stand. So yes, culture is different. And in many cultures, you're not allowed to talk about these things publicly. So you need to make sure that you're sensitive towards it. And at least you try and approach them within the limits of the culture, and you try to respect the norms so that you do not shame them. Because remember, most times you'll even find parents and elders don't teach us much about these things, but for some reason we're just expected to know them like magic. We're just supposed to know that these things are wrong and we're never given any teachings. So respecting cultural norms is something that's very key when you're addressing this. And of course, like any other problem or addiction, you must be aware of your own value set. Because one of the many fundamental mistakes we make when we're dealing with youth is to, reveal or impose our own religious or moral values. So as professionals, we shouldn't make assumptions about the values of maybe these teenagers or their families, or we shouldn't try and impose what we believe or the moral viewpoints, even if we feel that it's the best interest of them. It's just good to monitor any self-disclosure about your own experiences, because remember, you're dealing with a different person. The best you can do is to tell them what they need to do to end the addiction, but refrain from personalizing it. If you take it personally, it might offend the teenager and they might feel like you're judging them. Like when you try and come and impose your own values, they may feel judged and then they'll close up, and they probably. So another thing is that you should never underestimate the power of the addiction. Like, be it pornography, be it drugs, it is an addiction. And you need to understand that the power of the compulsion the youth are facing, and it's not uncommon for school, religious, or professionals to advocate a treatment plan that is based upon moral character. So since pornography can be an addiction, these things of just say no or avoid pornography cannot really solve the issue. It will just create more frustration, and it will like make the victims feel a bit defeated in those who don't really have the willpower to stop because they're addicted. They need to know that there's a treatment that they can go through, that there's therapy that they can go through, that they will be treated just like a disease is treated. It's basically a disease. So and that they can get better afterwards. So, or, just stop. You can't just stop. It's not that easy. And it's good to never underestimate the power. So other basic recommendations, although this is mainly be for the parents, would be like to put computers in common areas and not just bedrooms, and blocking access to adult television programming and cellular phone downloads. And also I think there's some programs you can put in your computers to prevent them. But at the same time, while you do this, you should also educate. Like I feel the youth need to be educated more about pornography and why it's bad. Because if we sit down and keep quiet, that's what builds up the curiosity. Then we go, then they just go and they search for the pornographic materials to see what it is and do issue. So with that being said, does anybody have any questions? I was only given 30 minutes, so I did my best to keep time. Yes. Hello?
Hello,
Yes, Shelly has raised her hand.
Yes, just to
Yes.
start, I want to ask something regarding your presentation. As you mentioned earlier, pornography can be an addiction like drugs. A little background about our country, Indonesia. In Indonesia, it's really common to say that pornography can be content which will can unite the nation. So, what can we done as an Indonesia medical organization, medical student organization, to overcome pornography addiction in Indonesia, because it's already so deeply embedded?
Okay. I just want to ask for clarification. Is it prevalent and accepted by society, or what did you mean? Hello?
I'm sorry. Hello,
Is
Barbara.
it? Mhm.
Hello, Barbara. I think you have a little bit internet connection problem. Can you repeat it one more time?
Okay. So I was asking, like, is it that it's accepted in society or it's very, very prevalent? Like, what exactly is the challenge?
I think it's really, really prevalent. Like our little generation already know pornography since adolescence, I think.
So, okay, what I would say in general, there's a very huge prevalence of pornography. But the first thing I'll ask is this: I feel like pornography is more prevalent in areas where, like, the cultural norms are strict. So you don't talk about sex, you don't talk about these things. You just know that they're bad and you're not supposed to do them. I'm guessing that's the same attitude that is there. And one thing that you can do, for example, like I said, you could start with, okay, for those who raise their hands, just give me a few seconds, then I'll get back to you. But like for now, what I would say as medical students, what you can do as an association, you could actually build a curriculum or a CSE program, and you start like conducting it either in the, what do you call it, primary schools and secondary schools, like for the age bracket of the adolescents, so that you can start teaching them. I think the main reason why people go to pornography is because they are curious and they're not educated enough and they're not allowed to talk about it with their elders. So in the end, if you don't tell me about sex and the things I'm feeling and the emotions I'm feeling, I can't explain. But when I try and ask and no one is telling me, I will go to the internet and look for it.
Okay, I understand by now.
So the thing is, see, I don't expect you to sit down and just go, yes. So that's good for you?
Yes, I think it's all answered because there is another person in line. And it can proceed. Thank you, Barbara, for your answer.
Okay, you're welcome. Yes, who is next? I'm sharing my screen. Let me stop sharing my screen.
Okay. Hello, Barbs. My name is Gina, and I'm really interested with your presentation. Thank you for the presentation. I have one question for you. Actually, I've heard somewhere before that masturbation can be healthy to do. However, pornography does the opposite, as you say. It does the opposite to our body. It is addicting and could potentially harm our brain. My question is, a lot of teenagers masturbate over pornographic content under the idea that masturbation is healthy. Is masturbating over pornographic content healthy at all? Thank you. Did you get my question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Okay, so who asked the question? I like referring to someone specific. I didn't hear your
hello.
name.
My name is Gina. Yes.
Hi, Gina. Thank you so much for your question. So, I think I would say it's not the healthiest to masturbate while you are watching pornography, because once you are used to it, like I said, you will tend to objectify any physical partner that you have. So if you do get into a relationship, it will affect a lot of your intimacy with that partner, because you will obviously be getting everything that you need based on the pornography. So it kind of changes psychologically, it changes your attitude to just be satisfied with the pornography and the masturbation, and you end up distancing yourself from physical relationships or ruining the relationships that you have. So I hope that has answered in itself. It's not healthy because of what it does to you psychologically. So that's good for you.
Can I give you a follow-up question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. My question is, how do you change that mindset and habit? Because a lot of people I know does masturbate over pornographic content, and that's the only way they would do it. And how do you change that habit of people, especially as medical student?
Okay, so as medical students, we may not have the expertise, but the best thing for someone who's addicted already is to go seek therapy, especially from a sex therapist, because that's where it starts from. You need to do that, because if you don't, and it will never work out for you. So the first thing would be to visit a mental health expert and to get therapy sessions, and they will be able to guide you properly on how you're going to recover, and yes, that whole process. So that's what I would advise, because as medical students, the best we can do is create awareness, have campaigns. Did I disappear for a while? I'm sorry. Or you had my answer?
No, it's okay. I get your answer. Thank you, Barbara.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay, Barbara, I think we still have one more questions.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. Hello, Barbara. My name is Hedvina, and I think your presentation is real amazing, and I become more aware of porn addiction. As you said before, there may be a correlation between the lack of sexual education in teenagers and the high addiction to pornography, because parents are reluctant to discuss about sex with their children. But sometimes I feel like I'm also afraid to educate the young people around me for fear of saying things that are not appropriate at their young age. And it still feels really awkward to say conversation about this kind of topic. Do you have any suggestions about what we need to say and not to say while we educate them, and how to properly start conversation about pornography? Thank you.
Okay. So as always, the most commonly asked question is, when you have strict cultural norms, how are you going to deal with this issue? And people are just not going to sit down and accept, pornography. So first I'll start with, what is the root cause of the issue as to why people are going to pornography? The thing is, they know nothing about sex, right? They know nothing about their body changes. They know nothing about their hormones. So yes, at first you won't just go start and write pornography on the blackboard and say, guys, today I'm going to talk about pornography. No, you'll start with basics. Changes in puberty, the hormones, understanding yourself, the feelings that you feel, physical attraction, and gender identity. You just slowly but surely, you'll tackle those areas. And then maybe by the time you probably by the time you're done with that, you'll find that the teenagers will start opening up to you. They'll start asking you questions about pornography. I'll tell you, I was a CSE trainer for 3 years. I never actually did conduct a pornography session. What used to happen is like we used to talk about the basics, puberty and everything. Then all of a sudden, one of the students will just ask a question about pornography, and that's where the conversation starts. So if I were you, of course, direct. We don't do that in SCORA. We also want to respect the cultural norms. Teach them the basics. Teach them, start with the root cause of the issue because they don't understand their sexuality. They don't understand the identity. And then you'll find that with time, as you continue creating that safe space, they'll open up and start asking about it. And once they ask, now the door is open. You can now talk about it. So I hope my answer made sense. Yes?
Yes, very makes sense. Thank you. I think it's super clear for me.
Okay. So anybody else?
Okay, Barbara, I'm afraid that's the end of the questions and answers session. So thank you for coming here and giving such a clear explanations about the topic. We would like to give you a certificate of appreciation. So to organizing committee, can you please share the certificate?
Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Can we take a picture first? Barbara, are you still there?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'm gonna count. 3, 2, 1. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So that's the end of the National Peer Education Training session today. We would like to thank you. We had such a wonderful time, and I believe everyone here so. And see you next time. Thank you so much, Barbara.
Okay, bye. It's been great interacting with you guys, and see you around.
Thank you. See you next time. By